Welcome to episode 47 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by 17 Laws Guy. It's December 17 in 2015 at Cobham. Chelsea are reigning Premier League champions. José Mourinho has a brand new 4-year contract. The banner in the shed end at Stamford Bridge still calls him the special one. Now, with Christmas approaching, Chelsea sits 16th in the table, 1 point above the relegation zone, having lost 9 of their first 16 league games. The first title defense in Premier League history to that point. By mid-afternoon, Chelsea released a short statement. They have parted company with José Mourinho, quote, by mutual consent. 7 months after lifting the trophy, the champion coach is gone. To understand how shocking December 2015 felt, you need the previous season. When Mourinho returned to Chelsea in 2013, he framed himself as older, wiser, the happy one, but the competitive edge was unchanged. In 2013-14, they finished third, close enough to see where the squad was short. He kept saying Chelsea were a little horse in the title race. Others, he said, were big stable horses. His needed milk and experience. It was classic Mourinho theatre, but with a point. Chelsea looked a bit short in key positions. The response in summer 2014 was brutally efficient. Diego Costa to finish chances and set the physical tone. Says Fabregas as the passing hub. Nemanja Matic back as the midfield destroyer, and Thibaut Courtois installed as number 1 in place of Peter Cech. The little horse suddenly looked like a thoroughbred. In 2014-15, Chelsea led the league from the first weekend to the last, took 87 points, 8 clear of Manchester City, lost only 3 league games all season, 1 even after the title had been clinched, and added the League Cup at Wembley. But there are hints of strain. After Christmas, the football gets heavier. Chelsea grind out 1-0s and 2-1s, protecting leads rather than chasing margins. The core players log huge minutes. By May, they've done the job, but they look tired. But the narrative in May 2015 was clear. The idea that those same champions would be in a relegation conversation 6 months later felt almost absurd. The first cracks appear in the strange summer of 2015. The spine that defined Mourinho's Chelsea begins to thin. Frank Lampard has already gone. Didier Drogba leaves again in 2015. Petr Cech, unhappy as a backup, is sold to Arsenal, a move Mourinho publicly opposes, but Roman Abramovich grants as a favor to a legend. The dressing room leadership group that once insulated Mourinho, Lampard, Drogba, around John Terry, is suddenly just Terry and Branislav Ivanovic, both edging into decline. Pre-season feels off. Chelsea based themselves with Montreal impact in facilities that, reporters on the tour later recalled, felt distinctly second tier for Premier League champions. Travel logistics are heavy. Transatlantic flights are squeezed up against the Community Shield. A weakened New York Red Bulls side tears them apart 4-2. Other friendlies against PSG and Barca don't dispel the sense of a team undercooked physically and tactically. Recruitment is underwhelming. After the smart work of 2014, summer 2015 yields a scatter of signings. Asmir Begovic as backup keeper, Radamel Falcao after a poor loan at Manchester United, Baba Rahman at left back, and Papi Dirobotti as a depth centre-back, plus prospects destined mainly for the loan army. The one piece Mourinho truly wants is a young, ball-playing defender, John Stones from Everton. Chelsea bid. Everton refused to sell. The board will not reach the asking price. Mourinho later reminds everyone that he gave his transfer projection in April. The subtext is, I told them what I needed. They didn't get it done. On top of that, this is a club that has already seen Kevin De Bruyne and Mohamed Salah leave earlier in Mourinho's second spell. At the time, those decisions feel pragmatic. With hindsight, they look like early signs of a coach misreading the next generation's temperament and potential. The first domestic marker is the Community Shield at Wembley against Arsenal. It's the 14th time Mourinho faces Arsene Wenger. He's never lost to him before. But Chelsea lose 1-0. Mourinho looks strangely unkempt and irritable. He pointedly avoids a proper handshake with Wenger, then turns the day into a sideshow about touchlines and etiquette. Previously, these antics would have felt like controlled deflection. Now the press and even his own players recognize them as tactics and start treating them as such. A week later comes Swansea at home on opening day. That's where the football problems and the human problems collide. Chelsea draw 2-2. Courtois is sent off. Swansea repeatedly exploit the space behind Chelsea's high defensive line. Jefferson Montero gives Ivanovic a torrid afternoon. Tactically, the champions look oddly ragged, as if stuck halfway between a high press and a deep block. Then Eden Hazard goes down injured in stoppage time. Referee Michael Oliver checks twice if he needs treatment. Hazard stays down. Oliver signals to the bench. Club doctor Eva Carneiro and physio John Fern sprint on exactly as protocol requires. Mourinho erupts. On the touchline, he's visibly furious. Afterwards, he calls his medical staff impulsive and naive, complaining that by treating Hazard, they briefly led Chelsea with 9 men as Swansea attacked. Within days, Carneiro and Fern are removed from matchday duties. Carneiro will later leave the club and sue for constructive dismissal. Chelsea settle, apologize, and acknowledge she simply did her job. Inside the club, the fallout cuts deep. Carneiro is popular with players, a trusted confidant. Her demotion removes a key bridge between squad and staff. From the outside, it looks like a powerful male manager bullying a high-profile female doctor at a time when women are only just becoming visible on Premier League benches. And symbolically, it is Mourinho turning the siege inwards. For a decade, he has built us against them. Now them suddenly seems to include his own people. On the pitch, the problems repeat. Chelsea tried to hold a high line without the coordinated press to protect it. Courtois is oddly cautious off his line, leaving big spaces for opponents to attack. Ivanovic's form falls off a cliff. A team that once looked perfectly calibrated now looks a step slow everywhere. Results snowball. 0-3 at Manchester City, with John Terry substituted at halftime in the league game under Mourinho for the first time. 1-3 at Everton, Stephen Naismith scoring a hat-trick, and home defeats to Crystal Palace and Southampton. Mourinho's man management starts to feel out of tune with the group he has. He's always thrived with players who feel overlooked or underestimated, using what South Americans might call branca, a sense of furious grievance to bind them together. At Porto, Chelsea 1.0 and Inter, that psychology matched the club identities. But Chelsea in 2015 are not hungry outsiders. They are established champions. The best players Hazard, a laid-back, instinctive talent who leads with the ball, not with speeches. Mourinho's attempts to harden him, questioning his work without the ball, pushing him through knocks, bristling when he seems cautious over injuries, erode trust rather than elevate performance. By October, the dressing room is leaking stories. Players are tired of the constant talk of conspiracies, less convinced by tactical instructions, uneasy at how medicals and backroom staff are being treated. The siege mentality has stopped uniting them. Now it just feels exhausting. After a 3-1 home defeat to Southampton on October 3rd, Mourinho delivers that famous 7-minute live TV monologue. He refuses to resign. If they want to sack me, they have to sack me, he declares himself. He declares himself the best manager this club has ever had. He argues that a culture of sacking coaches has conditioned players to believe the manager always pays, not them. There's a serious point there about short-termism and player power, but it's drowned out in the tone, and in the fact he also attacks the referee in a game where officiating was hardly decisive. To most watchers, it looks less like strategic reflection and more like a man flailing. Other flashpoints follow. He is sent to the stands at West Ham after confronting the referee in his dressing room. Diego Costa hurling his bib in frustration after being left out against Spurs, and a 1-0 home defeat to Bournemouth that feels like a genuine low. By the time Chelsea go to surprise leaders Leicester in mid-December, it feels like last chance territory. Leicester win 2-1. Jamie Vardy and Riyad Mahrez score. Chelsea rally late after a formation change, but the damage is done. 2 moments stand out. First, Eden Hazard goes down with a hip problem, comes back on, then quickly signals he cannot continue. Mourinho is visibly furious. Hazard brushes off contact. Whatever relationship they had in 2014-15 is clearly gone. Second, in his post-match interview, Mourinho says, "I feel my work was betrayed," explaining that Leicester scored from situations he'd spent all week drilling. Once a manager is accusing his players of betrayal on live television, the psychological bridge is gone. 3 days later, with Chelsea 16, 1 point above the drop, the club act. José Mourinho is out. Again. How unusual is this? Sacking managers mid-season is routine. Sacking a manager a few months after a title is not. In the Premier League era, Mourinho's 2015 dismissal sits in a tiny group. The only parallel, a year later, is Claudio Ranieri at Leicester, the miracle title coach sacked in February 2017 with his team just above the relegation zone, even as they make a Champions League quarterfinal. Across Europe's big leagues, presidents have pushed title-winning coaches out quickly before. At Real Madrid alone, in recent memory, we have Fabio Capello in both 1997 and 2007, Jupp Heynckes in 98, and Vicente del Bosque in 2003. But those were usually end-of-season moves driven by politics and style, not mid-campaign panics as champions flirted with a drop. In that sense, Chelsea 2015-16 is close to unique. A champion collapsing so fast that the man who built the team is removed before Christmas. And in the Mourinho story, this is the public turning point. The pattern that began at Real Madrid, third season fatigue, escalating feuds, a dressing room no longer buying the siege, is now impossible to ignore. The special one still wins trophies after this, but the aura of inevitability never quite returns. The aftermath. In brief, Chelsea first. Who's hitting returns as interim, calms the mood and steers them to mid-table. A year later, Antonio Conte arrives, switches to a back three and wins the 2016-17 Premier League with a record run of victories. In the season that followed, Sarri, Lampard and Tuchel all take turns, more cups, another European title, more upheaval. The message is clear. Chelsea were not tied to Mourinho for their identity as a winning club. Under Abramovich, the cycle of short reigns and regular trophies continues. Mourinho, meanwhile, keeps working and keeps living with the shadow of 2015. He wins a Europa League and a League Cup at Manchester United, finishes second once in the league, reaches a final with Tottenham, wins a European trophy with Roma, and later takes on Fenerbahce. There are still peaks, but each job is shorter. Each exit carries a little more baggage. In his first decade, Porto, Chelsea 1.0, Inter, and early Madrid is the rise of the special one. Then the collapse at Chelsea in 2015 is the moment when the rest of the game begins to see the downside of the act as clearly as the upside. On this day in 2015, Chelsea did something brutal and almost unprecedented. They sacked a champion manager halfway through a title defense. For the club, it was another sharp turn in a turbulent, successful era. For Mourinho, it was the afternoon when his greatest Premier League project spun out of his control and never quite came back. That's all for episode 47 of OTD. If you have stories about champion coaches getting sacked, sources or a fact you'd want on the show, then email us at otd@17lawsky.com. Subscribe and leave us a 5-star review so the algorithm can send more Premier League psychodrama obsessives our way. Tomorrow, in episode 48, we go back to 1956 and the very first Ballon d'Or, how the idea came about, why Stanley Matthews won it, and what that original vote tells us about how football started to rank greatness. See you then.